Hello and welcome back to another video. Today going to be going over what I think makes a Test Drive Unlimited game a Test Drive Unlimited game. So with the release of the third Test Drive Unlimited game next year, over 10 years after the second one, I thought I'd put together a video explaining what the new game needs to be like to fit into this series, particularly for those looking to get hold of the new game as their first Test Drive Unlimited game, having not played either of the original two, just to give you an idea of what these games were like, why I love them so much, and hopefully what you can expect from the upcoming title. So let's start with a bit of background way back at the beginning of the Test Drive series, a long time before the first Test Drive Unlimited. So back in 1987, the first Test Drive was released, making it a considerably older name than Need for Speed, Gran Turismo, or even Forza. This first game released with just 5 cars: the Chevrolet Corvette C4 generation, the Ferrari Testarossa, the Lamborghini Countach 5000 QV, the Lotus Esprit Turbo, and the Porsche 911 Turbo 3.3, the 930 generation. And the idea behind this first game was to race sports cars on the open roads. A few decades and a number of games later, in 2006, the Test Drive Unlimited series is born. It's the first ever open world racing game with a huge 1-to-1 scale Hawaiian island to drive around, paving the way for the Need for Speed, Forza Horizon and the crew games we all know and love to play today. Along with this, you could also buy houses, visit dealerships, join clubs, and of course take part in numerous races, as well as other related challenges. I wasn't aware of this game when it first launched, but a few years after I discovered it and immediately became my favourite game way back on the PlayStation 2. Being able to explore and more or less progress however you liked with no set story as such made it endless fun. That, along with the feeling that you are actually living the game, the cars felt like real possessions due to the purchasing process at the dealerships, and with your own virtual home and garage to store them in, it really felt like you were living that lifestyle. As well as this, the small details of being able to control everything on your car: windows, which when up or down actually changed the sound you heard from the engine, roofs, indicators, radio stations, which included some great classics on rock radio and TNT, some of which I didn't realise were in there until I last played the game, and so much more, made it feel all the more like it was a real car you were driving. The game didn't actually have the largest car list, but it remains, in my opinion, the most interesting and unique set of vehicles to this day, with absolutely everything from the low-end starter cars, an Alfa Romeo, Mustang, Pontiac and a couple of Audis depending on which platform you played on, to supercars nobody had heard of at the time, such as the Koenigsegg's, Ascaris and Spikers, all the way to wild early 2000s concept cars such as the Ford Shelby and Shelby GR1 and the Cadillac ME412. This first open world racing game with a unique car list, as well as the feeling of actually owning and driving these cars, as well as living the lifestyle that goes with them, made it a truly unparalleled experience at the time. 5 years later, in 2011, the sequel, Test Drive Unlimited 2, releases. After enjoying the original so much, I had to get hold of this new game as soon as I possibly could after its release. It's no longer the only open-world racing game at this point, with others such as Need for Speed and Midnight Club following suit after the first one. Test Drive Unlimited 2, however, still had a 1-to-1 scale Hawaiian island, the same as the original, but not only that, it also had a 1-to-1 scale version of Ibiza too, with the ability to travel between the two by driving to the airport. This game replaced some of the more random races scattered around the map in the original one with a more coherent competition, the Solar Crown. This, along with the characters, put off some of the fans who did love the original. Personally, I did quite like it, even if the characters' lines were a bit, actually, to be fair, nowhere near as bad as Horizon 4 or 5. It might be because I was late to play the first game and didn't play through as much of it as I do these days, as I was getting really easily distracted in that game, but I personally rather liked the sequel. Anyway, apart from that, this game kept all the features we all loved, like the dealerships, houses, but also added used car dealer, clothes shops, hairdressers, cosmetic surgeons, car washes, and eventually even a casino. Now, this could be argued to be taking the lifestyle part of the game a bit too far and kind of diverting away from the cars a bit too much, but I didn't really mind it. You didn't have to visit any of those locations if you didn't want to, and myself actually didn't get the DLC that included the casino, so I never played that part of it. More DLCs were rumoured to be in the planning, but nothing else made it into the game apart from a few cars, which were mostly variations of cars we already had. And all of this was before the most played open world game of today even existed. The original Forza Horizon arrived in 2012, a year after Test Drive Unlimited 2, and 6 years after the original open world racer. Hearing about this game though made me want to get hold of it as soon as it released, so having previously only had a PlayStation, I even went to the lengths of getting hold of an Xbox to be able to play the first Horizon game. This game was fantastic. In many ways it was better than the Test Drive games. The handling in Test Drive was never its strong suit. Forza, having experience with motorsport, however, introduced their handling from there, which was much better, and with a bigger car list, it also turned out to be a brilliant open world game. However, the map was quite a lot smaller, and it wasn't truly open world, as you were limited to the roads. You couldn't drive cross country, most of that part was closed off. There were no houses, no dealerships, and no details like the indicators or working roofs, until Horizon 5 a lot later. And for some reason in this first game, although you could upgrade your cars, it didn't allow tuning, which they did in their motorsport games, so that confused a lot of people. They did, however, introduce showcase events, which had never been done before, racing against planes, trains and balloons, in everything from a classic Mustang to a Ferrari 360 Challenge Stradale. These were far better than the new showcases we see in current Horizon games, making you truly feel like you were in a Top Gear race. It did, however, not quite have that same feel as Test Drive, with all of those details and bits missing. So Forza continued to produce Horizon games, as we know, although the last couple haven't been as great, mostly due to the fact the developers got swallowed up into Microsoft fully, and the crew also came along, as well as numerous Need for Speed games, but unfortunately for a while there was no sign of Test Drive Unlimited ever making a return. However, in 2016, the same year that Horizon 3 released, Nacon, the company that are developing the upcoming game, acquired the license for Test Drive from Atari, making fans of the original games hopeful that it could one day make a return. Several years go by with little to no information about the possibility of a new game, until in 2020, the first announcement trailer for Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown comes along. This is followed by all of the trailers we are now quite familiar with. So far we've had quite an exciting car list. I'll link a video that I made about that here. We assume from the game's title that the Solar Crown competition is returning, as well as the 2 clans that you have to choose between to add another element. It looks like houses are returning too, and we hope many other features such as dealerships and details such as indicators and roofs are also returning. Hopefully that gives you a good idea and overview of what the Test Drive Unlimited series is all about, how ahead of its time it was, particularly with that first game in 2006, and why it is loved by so many, including myself. Especially if you didn't play the first 2, hopefully this makes you want to get hold of the new one, and as well as that I would really recommend you play the older games too if you ever get the opportunity and you haven't already. As ever though, I look forward to hearing more about the upcoming Test Drive Unlimited game as and when there is more information, which I'll be sure to share here when there is, and I look forward to playing this highly anticipated game when it releases next year. That though is going to be all for today's video, so thank you very much for watching, and I'll be back with the next video very soon.